What I love about this project is that it's budget friendly. We're starting with a toilet paper roll. All right, so we are gonna start with our toilet paper roll and we are gonna cut it down to about half this size. So I'm gonna use some scissors. So now that we've cut our toilet paper roll in half, I'm gonna be using this side here. We're gonna set this aside for now because we're going to move on to the next step. So I'm gonna be taking an X-Acto blade and I essentially want to create like a flat piece because this is gonna be sitting on the ground and I don't want it to be unstable. So what I'm gonna do is I'm going to take my X-Acto blade and I'm gonna extend it out and I'm gonna kind of start shaving part of this piece away. Okay, so now that this is able to stand on its own, what I'm gonna be doing is I'm going to be attaching my toilet paper roll to the top. I want it to be directly over the base, so we want it to sit about right here. So I'm gonna start by taking my glue and I'm gonna go around the inside. I want it to kind of fall here. And I'm gonna take my hot glue and kind of go around to the outside. And so I'm just going to continue to add glue around the surface, basically kind of completing the gap that I see in between the toilet paper roll and the foam round. All right, so now that this has been glued, I am still waiting for glue to dry a little bit, but we can start at the bottom of this and work our way up. So it should be set by the time we reach the top. Now I'm going to use an artist palette knife. I have kind of more of a wide spatula-esque one. But yeah, this is what I'm going to be using. So if we open it up, you can see it's pink. So I'm going to take a big heap of this and we're going to just start layering it on. And ultimately what I'm trying to create is a really solid surface. And I want to try and make the surfaces relatively even. But you don't need it to be perfect because we're going to be doing another step after this that's going to help kind of smooth the surface out. Once I've completed this, when we get a little further into this step, I'll walk you through some other pieces, especially when we come up here. But for now, we will just keep moving and I'll see you on the next step. So now we're at a point where we want to work our way towards the toilet paper roll. That's definitely a little more set. So it's kind of tricky. You're definitely going to get your hands covered in spackle. So don't worry, nothing bad's going to happen with spackle on your hands. But if you choose to do this with gloves, it makes sense. Now that this is dried a little bit, it's not fully dry, as you can see, it's still relatively pink. We can start tackling the top part of this. So we're going to do essentially the same thing, but I'm going to start by going over the exposed base of the toilet paper roll. So you can see I'm kind of covering it there. We want this to look kind of blended. We want it to look pretty seamless. And like I said earlier, it does not need to be perfect. We are going to be doing another step once this is all dry to really even out the surface and make it look really nice. So I let this dry for about 24 hours, and as you can see, it is completely white now. It's no longer pink. And we did the inside just so it looked pretty complete when you were looking at it from afar, or when you're looking at it closely. I just wanted it to look very cohesive and nice. So what I'm going to do now is I have a sanding block that I've already used. So the sanding block is a little dull, so I'm going to be using some 220 grit sandpaper. I'm going to wind it around the block. All right, now that we've sanded this down, we're going to wipe it off and then we are going to take it outside and move on to our next step, which will be spray painting it. So here is the finished product of this high-end modern donut vase dupe, and I really love how it turned out. I think it looks great in my office, and I hope you feel inspired to try this project.
Go to your local grocery store to pick up a gallon jug of water or Hawaiian punch. take white chalk paint and baking soda, mix together, and paint all over the bottle. Grab some dried neutral brown and white pampas plumes and sand tone reed grasses and fill the vase. Place your vase in your home to display. There you have it, a cheap way to create your own modern decor for your home. I hope this inspired you to try this DIY modern vase project.
We're going to start with a glass cylinder vase. I got this at Dollar Tree. The second item we're going to be using for this project is this tumbling tower game. It's like a miniature Jenga. So I really want to expose the wood grain, and I don't necessarily want this natural finish that these wood pieces have. If that is the desired look that you want, then you can go for it. You can also use wood stain if you'd like. So what we're going to do is we are going to put our pieces in these 2 little containers I have. You may need more, or maybe go for, whatever you have available. And then we are going to pour coffee on top of these and kind of let the coffee soak into these wood pieces and kind of creating a DIY stain, if you will. So I was able to take my pieces out of the coffee. I let them soak for about 30 minutes to an hour, depending on how much time you have and how much time you want to let it soak. That's totally up to you. So now that they've dried, we are going to be assembling them to our glass cylinder. Now I'm going to be using my favorite glue, which is E6000. I have the transparent one, so make sure you get that. So the way I kind of figured it out, I think 5 around this size vase works really well. So I kind of want I want to place them just so I know they're going to work. However, if you want to take it a step further just to make sure it's going to look good, you can start kind of stacking the next layer. So we're going to basically be following the path up the side of the vase with these pieces and kind of stacking them with a little bit of an offset. I'm loving how the coffee really added some dimension to these wood pieces. And if you feel good about the spacing on all sides, then you're ready to start gluing, because really you just need to make sure the first 2 rows are solid in like the placement, and then you'll be good. And I'm just doing it on the center because you'll notice that the sides really aren't, they're not really touching. They're not making contact. Okay, so now that I've kind of looked around to make sure that it looks good, we're gonna go ahead and add the next layers. So one thing that I've noticed is you wanna add it on the back, the side that's gonna adhere to the vase, but I also like to add a little bit on the bottom of my pieces on either side where it's gonna make contact with the row below it. And that's essentially what the rest of this process is gonna look like. We're just going to continue this pattern all the way up the vase. So we'll be back when we come a little bit closer to the top to finish this vase project. So now that we've gotten to a place where we're actually right about to be at the top of the vase, you are welcome to stop. However, I want to continue this pattern up 1 more row. So I've got kind of some really pretty, and I really like the details on these grains, especially on the sides. I feel like those really pop as well. So we're going to continue. All we need to do is we just need to do the bottoms. So we're going to continue this all the way around. And one thing that I really like to pay attention to with this project is just making sure that each row that you're stacking is lined up. That's what's really going to make this look really cool when we're done, just because you want those straight lines.
And there you have it. This is my finished vase on the mantle in my living room. I absolutely love it. It was very easy to make and very budget friendly.
Okay, so we're going to start this project with a little bit of E6000 glue and also some air dry clay. So I got my E6000 here. However, I want to preface this with, if you want to use like an all-purpose glue, this tacky glue you can get at the Dollar Tree as well. I just want something a little more durable, but I have a lot of confidence that this type of glue would work also. For this part of the project, we are going to take out some clay. And I'm using the back of a cutting mat for this step, just so that the clay doesn't stick to my surface. And what I'm going to do first is I'm going to roll it out. I also have the help of a wooden dowel to help me kind of roll out my clay a little bit thinner. So we just want to go back and forth. Okay, so from here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take an X-Acto blade. I have a really dull X-Acto blade for this. It just really needs to be able to just cut the clay or just separate it. So I'm going to cut a piece about this thick, and I'm going to hand roll it out. We want this to be a little bit longer because we're going to be placing it on our vase. So I'm going to be measuring it on my vase. But what this is the shape that I want to create. I want to create like a shape that's kind of like a kind of like a long oval loop. So in order to make sure that this loop stays put, I want to make sure that I add a little bit of adhesive to the back side of it. Now you can do this with like a paintbrush if you'd like. You could add it to the clay yourself if you'd like. I'm gonna add it to my paintbrush, and I'm going to kind of brush it onto the vase directly. And don't worry, we're gonna be covering all of this, so don't worry about making it a little messy. This is purely to make sure that the clay stays put when it dries. And try and keep it nice and smooth, but yeah, just kind of lightly tap it. And it doesn't need to come up immediately to the top. We're actually gonna be adding another layer, but essentially what we're gonna do is we're gonna go all the way around the vase doing this exact same thing. We're gonna do another layer below it, and then we're going to let this dry. So now one thing that I wanna mention is that for this top row, you don't need to make this these loops like the exact same length. You can kind of have some variation. I think it's gonna look a little more modern if we don't make it exact. So it's okay if your first row kind of dips down a little bit past the partnering loop. Oh goodness, what did I do? But yeah, essentially we're just gonna keep doing this. So stay tuned. We will be back when we get to the next row to add a little bit more personality to this vase. Okay, so now that I have finished this first row, we're gonna focus on doing more of this underneath. So I'm gonna continue to roll out and do the same exact thing that I did for the first row, but just underneath, just to add another layer of dimension to this vase. And I just wanna make sure that these lines of clay are as even as possible in terms of thickness. Okay, so now I'm gonna put my hand in the vase, and I'm going to kind of figure out where I want this one to go. So it's gonna kind of start here. I don't necessarily want these to be as long as the other ones, the other row. So I think I can probably trim this one. And what has been working really well with the tacky glue is I can kind of draw out the shape that I want to create with the glue, which is a little bit easier to do than you would with the E6000. But yeah, just being very delicate with how I place it. Now don't worry about the excess glue. We're going to be covering all of this up, so if this part is a little messy, that's okay. So one final step we're going to do is we're going to take another layer of clay, and we're gonna go around the rim of the top of this vase. All right, so we've added this top part, so now we're gonna let it dry overnight, and we will come back for the next step. All right, so now that this is all dry, we are going to paint it. Now I am looking for a matte finish for my paint for this, so I'm gonna go with some chalk paint. Now you could do the spray paint version. I would have probably used a spray paint version, but it's really windy out. So I wanna make sure that I'm being safe. And I don't wanna get it everywhere. So instead we're gonna paint it on with actual chalk paint. So you can do whatever works best for you, but we're basically just gonna cover the whole vase in white. All right, so now we've added our first coat. We're probably gonna be doing a couple coats of this white just to make sure it's completely covered. So the first layer, I don't really worry about the texture or anything like that. I wanna make sure I'm just getting a nice first coat on here before, so everything from there will stick. So we're gonna let this dry, and we'll be back when it dries. And the nice thing about any sort of acrylic paint is that it usually dries quick. So we will be back. All right, so now that this part has, this first layer has dried, we are going to add some more layers. So really it's just a matter of, I'm using a smaller detailed brush just to like get into the little crevices to make sure I'm covering everything and there aren't any gaps or open spaces. But yeah, we're just gonna completely cover this until the entire vase is completely covered, and then we will stage it in my house. Here is the finished product. I'm really happy with how both these vases turned out. And really they look so similar to the Target version of the vase that I found. I hope you enjoyed this project. I hope you feel inspired to try it. Thank you so much for watching Home Talk, and I will see you next time.